This video is all about the clam exercise. Now, you may hear trainers and physiotherapists say that the clam exercise is a waste of time. It's not a functional exercise. You want to be doing functional exercises. But that's a bit short-sighted because there are definite times when the clam exercise can be valuable and when it's a good one to do. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you when the clam is of benefit to do, what benefits it holds, but also why it may sometimes cause pain and hurt when you do the clam. And then lastly, I'll show you 3 progressions for the clam, so how to make it more difficult, and also a variation that you can do if you can't actually get into the clam position. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maryke. I'm one of the physiotherapists from sportsinjuryphysio.com, where you can get online physiotherapy assessment as well as treatment for your injuries. Have a look at the description of this video if you want a link to our website. Okay, so what are the benefits of doing the clam exercise? Now, you know how when you do a squat, your lovely functional exercise called a squat, where people always tell you to keep your knee in line with your middle of your foot. Well, sometimes people just can't figure out how to do that using the muscles of the hip to turn the knee out. And if they really struggle with it, getting them into the clam position and teaching them how to do it in that position where it's isolated can then be a useful tool to get them to do it in more functional positions. But there's also evidence that you use your glute min, your glute med, as well as your glute max muscle when you do the clam exercise. So if you're really unfit, it's a good place to start to strengthen those muscles. Because remember, we all have different levels of fitness, different starting points. It may be that you've not exercised for years and that you actually really do need isolated exercises to train that at the start. But it may also be that you have a different type of injury that actually prevents you from doing the functional exercises. So for instance, you've injured your knee or if you've injured your foot and you can't actually do any weight-bearing exercises or get into a bridge position or any of that, then the clam is a really useful tool during that period of time. Also, if you have any hip injuries, the clam is a good way to check how strong is the muscles on this side versus that side, and do you have any differences between your internal and external rotators? And if they are, it's a good way to get them strong and make sure that you isolate them and get that basic strength back into them. Sometimes doing the clam exercise can actually cause pain. Why is that? Well, here are some of the main reasons. The first is that people often try to open their legs wider than the range of motion they actually have, and they really strain to get that upwards movement. And I'll demonstrate that to you in a minute when I do the exercises. And that can cause things to pinch and be uncomfortable at the top. Also, not everybody's hips has the same range of motion. So sometimes it doesn't like the angle you place your legs at, and you can get actually a pinching in the groin when you do it. And I find if people try to force it to work in that position, that pinching is often structures like the joint or things just pushing against each other. And if you keep on forcing it, you end up irritating it over time. So, so don't force anything, adjust your position if that's uncomfortable. Then also, if you don't stabilize properly and you allow your body to move back as you do the movement, the whole idea here, and I'll demonstrate this as well, is that it's your hip moving, but you're keeping your core still to stabilize your back. Now, if everything is moving in an uncontrolled way, that can sometimes sprain your back and make it feel uncomfortable, especially if you have a back injury or an iffy back that's not that strong at the moment. But saying that the clam is a great way to then strengthen it and teach you that dissociation of movement of how do I keep this stable and move my leg. That's actually one of the benefits I forgot to say, is that it teaches you how to move your leg without moving the rest of your body. But then also there are a few types of injuries where people tend to try and do the clam as rehab, but then it actually aggravates. And one of them is if you have gluteal tendinopathy or a bursitis in your hip. I find doing the clam exercise can really increase the pain there. And there isn't any research out there to prove why that happens, but my reasoning, what I think is happening there is evidence that when you do the clam, sorry, there's a bee that's annoying. When you do the clam, it also activates the tensor fasciae latae. Now, that muscle lies quite superficial and it lies over attaches into your IT band and lays over the hip where the bursa is. And when you have gluteal tendinopathy, the bursa is often also a bit irritated. So then if you do the clam action, the TFL kind of rubs over the bursa and that can irritate it. But I also think, because I can see it often happens when people open their legs too wide, that the gluteal tendons becomes irritated. And I think it's just a question of things pinching in the back there when you do there. So there are better exercises to do if you have gluteal tendinopathy than the clam. And I've made videos about those. So I will put links in the description of this video about that. Also for high hamstring tendinopathy, I find that action really irritates it. And I think, again, it's about how the high hamstring tendons attaches to the sit bone. And there's something to do with that action that you do that just irritates them when you open and close the leg. So yes, just be careful. The last one is also piriformis syndrome. People always want to try and do the clam action to try and strengthen the piriformis. Now, first of all, you don't actually strengthen the piriformis that well in the clam position. It works more when your leg's a bit straighter. But also, if you think of the sciatic nerve running either under the piriformis or through it, often doing an action that has a lot of movement like that can really irritate it at the beginning. So again, there are better options like isometrics and stuff like that for if you have piriformis syndrome, and that's a topic for a whole new video. So for the basic clam, you're coming on your side. Now, choose a position that's comfortable for you. If you can't get down to the floor because you've got a knee injury or your hip just doesn't like lying on a hard surface, do it on a bed. Anywhere where you're comfortable is the best place to start. And later on, when you get better, you can move onto the floor if you want to, or you get a really nice thick mat. But don't put yourself in an uncomfortable position to start with, because it will likely only make it more uncomfortable. Also, we don't want to see your head hanging down like this when you're there. So you can put your hand under there, but if that hurts your shoulder or it hurts your neck, put a cushion under there. You don't have to have your arm there, and then have the shoulder in a position that's comfortable for you. This one, I'm just going to place it at the front here because it's going to help me stabilize at the start. You can later on put it on there, then you can't use it, so you're going to have to use your core more. But for now, we'll put it at the front. You want to see that your hips are nice and stacked on top of each other. So this bit has to point straight up forwards. You don't want it pointing back like that, because then you're kind of cheating already. So we're there. The hips can be between 30 and 60 degrees angle. So that means it can be around there, although that looks like 90 on there, but I promise you it's not 90 on there, or even straighter there. So find a position that's comfortable for you. The research shows that anywhere between those angles, you get activation of all your main glute muscles. And you may find if it's bent up too much, it pinches in your hip. So then just move it a bit until you find that position that is comfortable for it. Okay. What we want to see, so before I walk you through the steps of what you contract and everything, what you want to see is you want to see this staying still and only your hip moving as you lift it up. And how we do this is you tighten up your tummy muscles ever so gently. Then you think about your feet lightly touching, and you're just lifting your leg up. Now, you don't have to lift high to start with. Just lift it up to there. See, am I rolling back? Because what you don't want to see is rolling back like that. You want to stay stacked. And as you get better at controlling it all, you can start lifting it higher. Also, when you go down, do that really slowly down. Don't just allow it to plonk down, because that's just gravity doing the work. If you allow it to come down slowly, you're working on the eccentric action there. So remember, you don't want to see that you pull back as you lift. That's cheating. So you go up to where it naturally can. This is where I stop. If I'm going to go higher, I'm going to have to strain here, or I'm going to have to pull back. So there's no use in doing that. I need to do it here until I get better at it. But this is my range of motion for the moment. We have a few different progressions we can do. And the first one involves an exercise band. And basically what this does is it just adds resistance. So you're activating the muscles more, they're working harder, you get a bit more strength from it. So when you tie the band, you want your legs close together. And you don't put extra stretch on it as you tie it. You just tie it so it's firm around it, because you want it to work from the moment you try to lift your legs up. Try not to get it to roll into a little roll, because that will be uncomfortable when you lift it up. Try to get it to stay flat. And it's exactly the same thing as we did a minute ago. You're going to tighten up your tummy. Make sure that you don't try and roll back to do the movement, because you're going to have extra resistance now. Your neck is nice and comfortable, and feet stays touching lightly, and you just rotate that out and then bring it back down. Now, obviously, when you first do it, start with the easiest color band. So depending on the brand you use, it's usually a yellow color, so that you can still get the full range of motion, but it's just a little bit hard when you do it. And I should also say, when you can do 3 sets of 15 of a specific type of clam, it's time to make it harder. It's time to move on, because then you've reached the limit of where it's beneficial, really. You've got the strength you need for that type of clam then. So with these, you can keep on making the band harder if you wanted to. You also want to rest about a minute before you turn around and do the other side, so that you make sure the muscles are rested when you do it. And you want to do about 3 sets of 15 usually. But if it's really tough band and you're really tired by 10, 3 sets of 10 can also be useful. So that's how you would do it with an exercise band. But if you don't have an exercise band, there's options for that. So one option is that instead of resting your feet there, you could start by actually lifting your foot there, that it's just not supported, and doing it through that range. But I'm really taking care that I'm stabilizing with my stomach muscles, because now it becomes a lot more of a stability exercise, so that it's not all over the show. And you can see, because I've now done several repetitions of this with this leg already, I'm getting a little bit shaky, because I've shot the seam quite a lot already. Okay, so that's one option. It will increase how much you work everything around the hip then. And another option is that you start with your feet like that. And what you do then is you do the clam in that position and open up. And what this is doing is this leg now also has to contract those glute muscles. Can you see that it's kind of doing a clam that's isometric there? So it's working both sides. So when you do this version, you really want to rest between the repetitions, because this leg is exercising as much as the other one. Sometimes you can't actually get into that position because it hurts to lie on your side, or your neck just doesn't like that position. So what can you do then? Well, that's where the exercise band can be really useful, because you can just do it on your back. Now, I'm going to actually demonstrate the movement for you here first. So you're going to be lying on your back. I'll do it in a minute lying down. But can you see, if I just let my leg fall out to the side and bring it back in, that's kind of the same as the clam action. But if I do it without resistance and I let it fall out, it's these muscles actually that's controlling the movement, and the opposite rotators. Same thing for pulling it back in. It's not actually the glutes. The glutes are doing nothing because gravity is doing the job there. So you need the resistance around the legs to do that. Now, if I'm going to open my leg up, I have to actively push to get it down, which works the glutes. And then as I bring it back slowly, I have to control with the glutes to not let it shoot back. Can you also see that this leg is actually working? Because while you're doing it, this leg needs to stay stable. So all of these muscles have to contract to keep it in line. So it's a lovely exercise to teach you dissociation of movement. How do I stabilize one side, move the other side, as well as strengthen everything? So this is how it would look if you're doing lying it down. You're comfortable. Please use a cushion under your head if you feel your neck needs that. You're tightening up your tummy muscles again, just squeezing them lightly, because you don't want your back to move excessively. It's pretty much a core exercise as well. Then as you pull this leg out, rotating it, you're keeping this one stable. So if you stop yourself there and you realize, oh, this one's come over, just take it back there. And then you slowly bring it back in. Now you could do 15 repetitions on one leg, not as fast as this, because then it's not controlling anything. You want to control it as it goes, especially the back. Or you can do one with this side, change to one with that side. It doesn't matter. You can choose. And of course, again, you can work through the different color bands to make it more challenging as you get better at it. Brilliant. Hope you found that useful. Now remember, if you need more help with an injury, you're welcome to consult one of the team via video call. The link to the website is in the description of this video. Take care.